Close your eyes. Picture a woman. Not a queen, an emperor. Not someone's consort. The sole ruler of an empire that stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the borders of Persia. She reigned over 50 million people. She controlled the largest, richest, most sophisticated civilization on Earth at the time. And almost nobody in the West knows her name. This is Wu Zetian. Born in 624 CE. Died in 705 CE. And in those 81 years, she did something no woman before or after her ever managed. She founded her own dynasty. She named herself its emperor. And she made an entire empire call her by a title no Chinese woman had ever been given. Son of Heaven. But here's the thing about reaching the top when you're the only one of your kind. Every step you take, someone is writing down how wrong you are for taking it. The men who wrote history after her called her a usurper, a murderer, a whore. They said she killed her own daughter. They said she poisoned her sons. They said she was the most evil woman who ever lived. And maybe some of that is true. But here's what they never ask. If Wu Zetian had been a man, would we even be having this conversation? Or would ruthless ambition have a different name when a man holds the sword? This is not a story about whether Wu Zetian was good or evil, because that's the wrong question. The right question is, what does it take for a woman to rule a world that was designed to make ruling impossible for her? And what does that answer tell us about the women who tried today? She was born in 624 CE, in Wenshui, a small county in what is now Shaanxi province. Her father was a timber merchant who had made his fortune supporting the founding emperor of the Tang dynasty. Her mother was from a noble but declining family. In the rigid hierarchy of Tang China, this made her nobody special and nobody invisible. Just a girl with a clever face and a father ambitious enough to educate her. That education, rare for a girl in 7th century China, would prove to be the most dangerous weapon she ever owned. At 14, she entered the imperial palace. Not as a bride, not as a princess, as a tyrant, a 5th-rank concubine. In the harem hierarchy, this was essentially decorative furniture that might occasionally be useful. The man she served was Emperor Taizong, one of the greatest emperors in Chinese history. Think of him as the Tang dynasty's Augustus, a man who had seized the throne by killing his own brothers. A man who understood that power is not given, it is taken. He was 40. She was 14. And Taizong saw nothing special in her. She was one of hundreds, a passing fancy, a face in the crowd. But Wu Zetian noticed everything. There's a story. It might be legend, it might be true, and in history, the stories we choose to tell are often more revealing than the facts we can prove. Emperor Taizong had a horse. A wild, magnificent, untamable horse. One day, standing before his court, he asked, "Who can tame this beast?" Silence. Then, the 14-year-old concubine stepped forward. "Your Majesty, I can tame it. But I will need 3 things." The court fell silent. A girl, speaking in front of the emperor? First, an iron whip. If that does not work, an iron hammer. And if that also fails, a dagger to cut its throat. The emperor smiled. The court laughed nervously. What a strange, fierce little girl. Nobody knew it then, but in that moment, Wu Zetian had just told the entire Tang dynasty exactly how she intended to govern. Not just horses, empires. Then in 649 CE, Emperor Taizong died. And by the laws of the empire, Wu Zetian's life was essentially over. In Tang China, an emperor's concubines who had not borne him children were sent to a Buddhist convent after his death. They shaved their heads. They took vows. They died, slowly and quietly, in rooms nobody visited. Wu Zetian was 25 years old. The convent was Ganya Temple. And by every rule of the game, she should have disappeared there. But Wu Zetian had one thing the rules didn't account for. She had been planning. Before Taizong's death, while still serving him as concubine, she had formed a connection with someone very specific. The crown prince, Li Ji, Taizong's own son. When Li Ji became the new emperor, Emperor Gaozong, he visited the convent. He saw the woman he remembered, and he decided that his father's concubine belonged in his palace. This is, by every moral standard of the time, deeply scandalous. It is also strategically the single most brilliant move of her early career. A woman with 0 power base, 0 family connections, 0 institutional allies, staring at a lifetime of silence in a convent, she looked at the rules of her world and thought, These rules are designed to bury me. So she walked around them. She returned to the palace, but she was not yet powerful. She was merely visible. Emperor Gaozong already had an empress, Empress Wang, and a favorite consort, Consort Xiao. Both outranked Wu. Both had established positions. Both saw Wu as a novelty who would fade. They were wrong. In 654 CE, Wu gave birth to a daughter. The infant was healthy, beautiful, a princess. And then one day the baby was dead. Here is what the historical records say, and pay attention to how careful the language is. The Empress Wang had just been to visit the infant. After she left, the illustrious consort Wu smothered the child under the blankets. Then she covered her up and acted as if nothing had happened. When the emperor arrived, Wu was all smiles. He lifted the blanket and found the baby dead. This is from the New Book of Tang, written over 300 years after the events. Written by men. Written after Wu's dynasty had fallen. Written by the scholars who served the men who overthrew her. Now here's what's fascinating. Not the crime itself but what it reveals. Historians cannot agree on whether Wu actually killed her daughter. Some say yes. Others argue the infant died of natural causes, crib death, illness, and Wu simply seized the opportunity to frame the empress. Others note that the earliest records, written closer to the events, don't mention this at all. The accusation appears only in sources compiled centuries later. But here's the uncomfortable truth. It almost doesn't matter whether she did it. Because in the historiography of powerful women, being accused of the worst possible crime is itself a punishment. If you're a woman seeking power, every misfortune around you will be blamed on your ambition. Every death will be your murder. Every accident will be your scheme. This pattern did not end in the 7th century. What we know for certain, after the baby's death, Empress Wang was accused of the murder. She was deposed. Consort Xiao was also purged. Both women executed, their families destroyed. In 655 CE, Wu Zetian became empress. She was 31 years old. It had taken her 17 years to go from 5th-rank concubine to the most powerful woman in China. And she was just getting started. For the next 3 decades, Wu Zetian did not sit back and enjoy being empress. That's not how this story works. Emperor Gaozong was, by all accounts, a decent man but a weak ruler. He suffered from chronic headaches, possibly hypertension or a stroke, that left him incapacitated for long periods. And during those periods, Wu governed. Not behind the throne. Not through a male proxy. Directly. She sat in court. She read memorials. She made decisions. She appointed officials. She overruled ministers. And she did it so competently that even the men who hated her could not deny the results. But competence was not enough. No amount of administrative brilliance could overcome the fundamental, unspoken rule: the empire belongs to men. So in 683 CE, when Gaozong died, Wu Zetian faced the moment that defines every powerful woman in history, and many powerful women today. Her son Li Xian became emperor. He was supposed to rule. She was supposed to step back, retire, fade. She lasted 6 weeks before deposing him. Another son replaced him. She deposed him too. And then in 690 CE, she did the unthinkable. She declared the Tang dynasty over. She founded a new dynasty, the Zhou. She named herself emperor. Not empress, emperor, using the masculine title Huangdi. She took a new name, Wu Zhao. Zhao means illuminating, and she wrote it with a character she invented herself. A sun and a moon hanging together in the sky. The symbolism could not be more deliberate. The sun is yang male. The moon is yin female. She was saying in a single character, I am both. I am neither. I am beyond your categories. She was 66 years old. Now think about why this matters. In the patriarchal imagination, a woman who rules is always ruling through something. Through her husband, her son, her lover. A woman who rules in her own name, under her own dynasty, with her own invented character for her own invented title. That's not a queen, that's not a regent, that's a revolution. And the men of China understood this perfectly, which is why they tried so hard to erase her. And what did she do with this power once she had it? She governed. And by the standards of the time, she governed well. She reformed the civil service examination system, the meritocratic engine that had made Tang China the most administratively sophisticated empire on earth. She opened it wider to more people from lower social classes. She deliberately promoted scholars over aristocrats. She understood that her power base could not be the old noble families. They would never accept her, so she built a new elite, one that owed everything to her. She lowered taxes. She expanded agricultural production. She maintained the empire's borders. She sponsored Buddhism over Confucianism, in part because Buddhism did not have the same rigid patriarchal hierarchy. Well played. Did she use secret police? Yes. Did she employ informants? Absolutely. Was her regime sometimes brutal? Undeniably. But name me one emperor of Tang China, one male emperor, who didn't do the exact same things. In 700 CE, when she was 77 years old, Wu Zetian did something that would not be discovered for nearly 1300 years. She commissioned a small golden tablet, just 36 centimeters long, 8 centimeters wide, thinner than a fingernail, weighing 223 grams of pure gold. On it, she had 63 Chinese characters carved. She sent a Taoist priest named Hu Chao up Mount Song, one of China's 5 sacred mountains. He climbed to the summit Junji Peak, and there, in a crevice between the rocks, he placed the golden tablet. This was a ritual called Tu Long Jian, casting the dragon tablet. Confession. A plea. A prayer offered not to human ears but to the gods. The inscription reads, "The Lord of the Great Zhou Wu Zhao, who delights in the true Tao and the eternal immortals, respectfully visits the central march mount, Mount Song, and casts a golden tablet to beg the 3 officials and 9 offices to expunge Wu Zhao's crimes." To expunge Wu Zhao's crimes. The woman who had ruled an empire for 15 years. The woman who had deposed her own sons. The woman who had ordered executions. The woman who had stared down every man who tried to stop her. At 77, after surviving a serious illness, she climbed, through intermediaries, to the top of a sacred mountain. And she begged the cosmos to forgive her. This golden tablet was found in 1982. Not by archaeologists. By a farmer named Chu Shihuai, picking medicinal herbs on Mount Song. He noticed something glinting in a rock crevice. He thought it was a candy wrapper, a piece of metal foil. He almost threw it away. Instead, he took it home. Word spread. Smugglers offered him 50,000 yuan, a fortune at the time, roughly $10,000. One of them even wrote a blood oath promising to split the profits. Chu Shihuai refused. He donated it to the state. And that's how we found the only surviving artifact directly associated with Wu Zetian herself, her confession to heaven written in gold. 5 years later, in 705 CE, it ended. Wu Zetian was 81 years old. Her health was failing. And in the palace, a coup was brewing. Her 2 favorites, the Zhang brothers, had been her companions in her final years. Young men who provided what aging emperors throughout history have sought: comfort, entertainment, the illusion of youth. The court officials despised them. They saw the Zhang brothers as proof that a woman ruler was inherently dangerous. See, she's being controlled by her male lovers, just as we always said she would be. The irony, of course, is that male emperors had concubines by the hundreds and nobody called that a governance problem. On February 20, 705 CE, the coup struck. The Zhang brothers were killed in the palace. Wu Zetian was forced to abdicate. Her son Li Xian was restored to the throne. The Tang dynasty returned. The Zhou dynasty died with her. She lived 11 more months, stripped of actual power but allowed to keep her title. A symbolic concession. A nod to the fact that even her enemies couldn't fully erase who she had been. She died on December 16, 705 CE, at the age of 81. Wu Zetian was buried at Qianling, the mausoleum she shared with her husband, Emperor Gaozong. It's an entire mountain in Shaanxi province, hollowed out to hold the bodies of an emperor and an empress. And here is where the story gets truly strange. For over 1,000 years, Qianling has stood untouched. Not because nobody tried. The peasant rebel Huang Chao brought 40,000 troops to dig it up. They dug for months. They carved a trench 40 meters deep into the mountainside, known today as Huang Chao's Ditch. They found nothing. They dug in the wrong direction. The warlord Wen Tao in the 10th century systematically robbed 17 of the 18 Tang dynasty imperial tombs. He got into every single one, including Taizong's, and looted them clean. 17 out of 18. The only one he couldn't touch? Qianling. According to legend, every time his men approached, Violent storms descended, thunder, lightning, winds so fierce they couldn't stand. The moment they retreated, the sky cleared. When Tao eventually gave up. In the 20th century, a nationalist general named Sun Lianzhong tried to blast his way in with artillery and explosives. His soldiers blew through layers of stone, and then a black smoke poured from the hole. 7 of his men collapsed on the spot, vomiting blood. He abandoned the attempt. And then, in 1958, something remarkable happened. Local farmers, not soldiers, not archaeologists, not tomb raiders, stumbled upon the entrance to Qianling while quarrying stone for road construction. They found it by accident. The entrance was sealed with enormous stone blocks stacked in layers, the gaps between them poured full of molten iron. A design so perfect that it had defeated 40,000 soldiers, a legendary tomb raider, and modern explosives. In 1960, archaeologists confirmed this was the entrance. And behind it, unbreached, undisturbed, the tomb of Wu Zetian and Emperor Gaozong. But the Chinese government chose not to open it. Premier Zhou Enlai personally intervened when scholars petitioned to open Qianling. His response was quiet and absolute. We cannot finish every good thing in our generation. Some things must be left to our descendants. To this day, Wu Zetian's tomb remains sealed. The only Tang dynasty imperial tomb never opened, never robbed, never violated. And inside it, according to historical estimates, thousands of artifacts, calligraphy, silk paintings, gold and jade. Perhaps even the Orchid Pavilion preface, the single most famous piece of Chinese calligraphy in history, which Emperor Taizong was so obsessed with that the original might have been buried with him. Which means if that's true, it's still there. But the most famous thing at Qianling isn't inside the tomb. It's outside. The blank tablet. Standing at the entrance, 7.5 meters tall, weighing 98 tons, is a stone stele. No inscriptions. No epitaph. No words at all. It's known as the Wu Zibei, the tombstone without words. Here's the popular story. Wu Zetian herself ordered the blank tablet as a gesture of humility. Let future generations judge me, she is supposed to have said. My achievements are beyond words. My crimes are beyond excuse. Let the silence speak. It's a beautiful story. It's also probably wrong. Archaeological examination of the tablet reveals it was originally prepared with a grid of over 3,000 engraved squares, a standard practice in Tang stone carving, the framework within which calligraphers would carve characters. The tablet was designed to be written on. The words just never came. Wu Zetian was deposed. Her dynasty was erased. Her son reclaimed the throne. And perhaps in the chaotic aftermath, nobody had the political courage or clarity to decide what the tombstone of a deposed female emperor should say. So they said nothing, which is, in its own way, perfect. And then there are the statues. 61 stone figures, life-sized, standing guard along the spirit path leading to the tomb. They wear foreign dress, Turkic robes, Central Asian hats. They represent the kings, princes, and chieftains of the various peoples who paid tribute to the Tang and Zhou empires. Every single one of them is headless. For centuries, nobody knew why. Theories abounded. They were decapitated by foreign invaders, destroyed by earthquakes, vandalized by locals who resented the foreigners they represented. Then, in 1971, 2 farmers in the nearby village of Guapaling were working in their fields when their plow struck something hard. They dug it up. It was a stone head. More heads followed, dozens of them. They were brought to archaeologists, who matched them to the bodies at Qianling. The heads had simply broken off. Whether from the Great Shangxi earthquake of 1556, the deadliest earthquake in recorded history, or from centuries of weathering, we may never know for certain. But there's something about the image that stays with you. 61 headless guardians, standing in silent vigil around a tomb whose owner spoke to heaven in gold but refused to speak to history in stone. Here is what I want you to sit with. Wu Zetian ruled for 15 years as emperor of her own dynasty. She built a meritocracy. She expanded the empire's borders. She commissioned great works of art and architecture. She governed competently, sometimes brutally, through systems that were designed to exclude her existence. And within 50 years of her death, the historical record was being rewritten to turn her into a monster. Not all of it was unfair. She did terrible things. She may have killed her own children. She certainly killed her rivals. She was not a saint. But here's the question that makes people uncomfortable. Why do we need her to be a monster? Because if Wu Zetian was just competent, then what does that say about all the women who never got the chance? All the capable, brilliant, ambitious women throughout history who were told, not you can't rule, but something far more effective. You can rule, but only through a man. Wu Zetian refused to rule through a man. She ruled in her own name. And for that, history punished her memory for over a millennium. Is that not still happening? In 2016, a woman ran for president of the United States. She was arguably the most qualified candidate in decades. She lost. And the post-mortem was not her policies didn't connect. It was she was unlikable. She was too ambitious. She wanted it too much. Sound familiar? We have not moved as far from 690 CE as we like to think. Wu Zetian's tomb remains sealed. Her golden confession sits in a museum in Hunan province. Her blank tablet still stands in the rain on a hillside in Shaanxi, waiting for words that never came. And around it, 61 headless men who once represented the world bowing to her empire, now just stone sentries, guarding a secret that no one alive has ever seen. What would you write on a tombstone the world refused to inscribe? What would you confess, if the only listener who could forgive you was the sky? And what would it take, really take, to become the first and only woman who ever made an empire call her emperor?